Hello, silly people, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Trey, and we will continue with week 2 of Artist Bootcamp. I almost forgot what we're doing. For January 27th, we will be going over shapes, 2D and 3D, heads and hands, mapping anatomy to mannequins and sculpture, but also doing gesture. But also we're going to step things up a notch every day this week by doing things just slightly different. But that's the program. So first off, we start with shapes. And we make a new layer. Pick a color, any color. Let's go with a goldish color. Why not? B for the brush tool. And we're trying to get loose and limber. Loose and limber. We're not stressing about it. We're back on the trail. We're back in the gym. And we're getting our shots up. That's all we're doing. And the simple shapes are the circle, the square, the rectangle, and the triangle. And these are the building blocks of other shapes. But everything is comprised of shapes and how light hits shapes to give it form. But we do this to get back. This is our training routine. Something to keep us focused and moving along the path. Rectangles and triangles. All right. Now for something different. Something different is you can try to move shapes in space. So for example, if we have a circle, right? This is a circle, and what would a circle look like on its side, right? A flat, it would just be an ellipse. And this is just a flat circle moving in space. For a square, it would be a flat plane, but then it would move to be more flat. And sometimes I do this to, just think about objects in space. A triangle would get more pointy, if that makes any sense, or flatter and moving down. So it's like it's moving in space. And a better example is in 3D shapes. So let's do some 3D shapes. Let's boop the button. I don't know. But anyways, let's go over some cubes. And cubes are just simple shapes constructed in ways to give them dimensionality. Cubes. And a cube has, what, 6 sides? And you can, if it's clear, you can see through it. So there, you can make a, but we just need the outside. And so the other sides are implied, but not seen. Cylinders. See that circle flattened on top? 2 straight lines, and then this edge, because you can't see through it. But that top facing side, again, these shapes give the impression of 3D. And if you can make a cylinder, like with the anatomy for making limbs, arms and legs, simple cylinders can work. Cones, and putting all these things together, you can make something. So for example, can't forget the pyramid. So it's a sphere. Highlight would be here, shadow here, and then it would be hatching. And that's the basis of the 3D shapes. But let's, for example, take some of these 3D shapes by making a new layer. Let's knock that new layer, and say we wanted to make a head, but a simple complex shaped head. So say you had a rectangle. It's just a modified cube, right? And we're going to make this somebody's cube head. So this would be the front of the cube head. And say the eye line is just above the middle. So say about here. The eyebrow ridge, hairline would be this plane. The nose would be here, but we can make, say, a simple triangle for the nose. The neck can be that cylinder. The mouth, if you had 2 spheres for eyes, but you can make objects by combining these things, morphing them, putting them together. I don't know. But also something you can try is moving these in space. So say, for example, what would this look like if it was turning towards you? Right? It would get more, you would see more of this top as it goes back in space. Well, comes towards you in space. And this helps to try to see things as shapes that can move in space. Or this cube, again, what would that look like if this top face, put a dot on it to distinguish it, was moving? What would that look like if you could see more of that top? Maybe it's some dice and it's tumbling. Right. Sure, it's off, but I think we get the idea. It's an object moving in space until maybe you can barely see it before it tumbles over and then it's covered. Or a cone, if it was pointing, right, if it was tipping this way and then tipping more until it was laying on its side, and things like that. A circle, it would just roll around and be a circle all the time. But you can put it in space where you have a larger circle and then a smaller circle behind it, like planets or something. And a pyramid is much like a cone, where you could see more of the bottom or more of the top. So if it was tipping this way, you would see more of the bottom as it tilts back until it's on its side and it's just, right, and you barely see. Stuff like that. It's playing with shapes and moving them around, because usually we want to move things in space, but that is shapes. Simple and complex. Heads and hands is up next. But this time we're going to do something a little bit different, where we're going to look at it. All right, let's look at it. So we got the cranium, we got the eye sockets, got the nose cavity, got the mandible underneath. Right? This is one section, and then the mandible is on. So let's try to draw that without aid, shall we? Let's give that a shot. So B for the brush tool. So we have the large circle for the cranium. And then it comes down for the teeth. There's the cheekbones. Cheekbones comes down into the teeth. And then the mandible comes down towards the chin. Mandible down towards the chin. And there's a bit between the two, and then the teeth comes up. And the eye sockets are about like this. And then the nose. Right, and the nose is just above this line. And it looks like a modified diamond-ish shape. There's a plate between. And that is the skull. Unaided. Let's look. Just about. And that always helps to figure it out. Right? You look at it, then you try to do it on your own, unaided. Just to see if you can. And then every day we'll take a different position, like 3/4, and then try to draw that unaided. And we'll try that. So next up, we're going to do, so let's just draw just a proto head. Right? Okay, so again, the circle, and then we extend that down to be an oval. If we have a center line for this straight on view, just above the center, which is about here, is the eye line. The eyebrow ridge would be about here, the hairline about here, the nose about here, the mouth about here. You got the ears between the nose and the eye, and this is all practice. You got a nose, nostril, you got nostrils, you have eyes. This is how we all start, right? You see it and then you copy some sort of variance of it. Eyebrows, and the hair, let's say, is in the mouth. This is like the most generic head, but it's okay because this is how we learn. There's a bit of a shadow underneath. It's got a neck, and that's the head. Well, let's also try to do a side plane around the zygomatic arch. It comes down. So around the zygomatic arch. It's down and towards chin. And that is basic head. And this is what we all have to go through. So that's heads. Let's do a hand. Which one do I want to do? Let's see. All right, well, let's take a look at this one. V0. Hand. Palm side down. Fingers not exactly splayed, but now let's turn that off and try to draw it. So, new layer. It was something like, right, if we do a simple box, a squash box. Why am I leaning so far? Well, the arm comes down this way. Let's move this over. Lasso tool. Transform and then move this over. Okay. Return and then Command D to deselect. Back to the brush tool. And I think it was something like this. And the thumb came off something like that. And trying to practice like this from memory is fun. Because you don't have to be exact. What I usually like to do whenever I start a new drawing, painting, you just sketch it out real quick. If you have a person standing, let's say one leg is out, you just draw it simply, and then you keep working on it until you're satisfied, and then you look for a reference to see what it usually looks better when you try it first and then look for reference, and then see how you can push and pull things to make it more interesting, more dynamic, and whatnot. So let's see, kind of, sort of, yeah. And that is a very blocky cube hand. Now let's move on to anatomy. Anatomy is up next. All right, so let's run it down. Top to bottom, we have the trapezius, which is shoulder. Comes along the, well, it makes a diamond along the back. But we have the upper part that is the shoulder. The deltoid is your shoulder attaching to your arm. On the upper arm, from front to back, there's the bicep in purple, the brachialis in green, and the tricep on the back. We have the brachioradialis in gold, coming from the lower upper arm, from the outside and coming inwards towards the thumb. On the trunk, there's the pectoralis, the external obliques, which is on the side. Also, the latissimus dorsi is coming from the back towards the front, but on the side. The serratus anterior, which are these lightning bolt shape along the, well, they kind of mimic rib cage. There's about 3 of them. Cha-cha, cha-cha, cha-cha. The rectus abdominis, upper part is the six-pack, lower comes down into the groin, and about the dividing line is the belly button. The gracilis is the upper thigh. You have the adductor longus coming across from the inner thigh towards the outer, but it's covered by both the gracilis and the sartorius, which comes from the hip, from the outside hip, across the thigh, and towards the inside knee. In the middle of the thigh is the rectus femoris. On the outside is the vastus lateralis. And the kneecap is the patellar. The patella is the kneecap. The patellar tendon comes from the kneecap and goes towards your ankle. The gastrocnemius is the calf, mostly seen on the inside of the calf. Just on the outside of the patellar tendon is the anterior tibialis. Anterior tibialis. And then the fibularis longus is on the outside of your lower leg. And between the anterior tibialis and the fibularis longus is the extensor digitorum longus in red. All right, to do something a little bit different though, let's take a deeper look at the bones and the muscles, and we'll do a different section every day. So for this Monday, let's do the torso. And the torso, the bones within the torso, well, the skull, the spine, and the rib cage, and the pelvic bone are the main features of the torso. Now in muscles, again, the trapezius is this on the back, but you can see the shoulder, the upper part, just above the clavicle. The pectoralis major is the flat muscles in the front. The rectus abdominis, again, the six-pack, upper and lower. The serratus interior are these 3 lightning, I call them lightning bolt shape muscles. The latissimus dorsi is in this light green along the back, but you can also see it slightly on the side, covering your ribs. And then the external obliques is this pinkish color. The love handles, I call them, attaching the rib cage to your upper, well, the pelvic wings and the rib cage. Those are external obliques. Now let's look at the pelvic. So for the pelvic bones, right, the spine, right, comes all the way down to your pelvic area. Then the sacrum is on the back, your tailbone, which if you slip and fall, you're gonna knock that sacrum. The coccyx It's this little tail part at the bottom. The ilium wings, also called the pelvic wings, are this large in green. The acetabellum is the red, and it connects to the head of for your legs. The superior pubic ramus is this. The inferior pubic ramus is the under part. And the ischium is in blue, from the lower part towards the back. And those are your pelvic bones. Now, there is some difference between a male pubic bone and the female. And the female has a larger area here for the birth of, it facilitates the birth of a baby that the head can get through. For the muscles of the pelvic area, well, the main ones that I'm going over here are the rectus abdominis. That again, the lower part comes from just about under the belly button down into the pubic area, the pelvic area. The external obliques in purple attaches to the iliac wings. The tensor fasciae lata from the hip and connects to the femur, right, on the sides. There's the gluteus medius that's, kind of on the back side, because that is mostly your back side. Gluteus maximus on the back side again. And the sartorius comes from the hip, comes inside towards the knee. And those are the pelvic muscles. And tomorrow I think we'll do the the whole arm muscles and bones. But that concludes the bones and muscles, our anatomy study. So let's map those. So we have the mannequin, and let's do simple shapes. First off, so we do a circle for the head. We can extend that down to an oval. And the mandible, it's got a neck. How about we do something like we turn off that, and then if we need it, we'll take a look just to test ourselves. Okay, so got the trapezius on the shoulder, clavicle, sternum. The rib cage is a modified circle, an egg shape. I forgot we're doing the simple one, not the muscles. But we got the box for the pelvis, and this is his dominant leg. So he's got most of the weight on this. So that'll make the hip tilt just a little bit. There's this side plane here. Right, he's being lit from this side. So this side is more in darkness. And you can see some of the highlights on where the turn. Right. And circles for joints, shoulders, elbows, wrists, knees, ankles, and cylinders for the limbs. And now let's try it again with the muscles. Okay, circle for the cranium, mandible, the neck, trapezius, clavicle, sternum. The pectoralis major comes across the rib cage and into the upper arm. So clavicle, sternum, across the rib cage, upper arm. The deltoid is your shoulder. The bicep is in front, brachialis on the side, and then tricep is on the back. So bicep, brachialis, bicep, tricep, I'm sorry. We have the brachioradialis coming from the outside towards the thumb on the lower part of your upper arm. crossing towards the thumb. There's extensors and flexors in your forearm. Helps move your digits. We have the rectus abdominis, six-pack upper and lower. We have the latissimus dorsi, serratus anterior, the external obliques for your love handles, your gluteus maximus with your behind, which is always behind you. We have the gracilis of your thigh. What is this one? I'm drawing a blank. This is the sartorius comes from the outside of your upper hip. The iliac wing, iliac crest, whatever, comes across. Sartorius comes across and into the inner thigh. So iliac crest goes down, inner thigh. But what is this muscle called? Adductor longus. Adductor longus. Adductor longus from the gracilis sartorius. Adductor longus. Rectus femoris. Rectus femoris. The outside lateral something. Vastus lateralis. Vastus lateralis. Patella. Patellar tendon. Gastrocnemius. That tibialis anterior. It's on the outs next to the patellar tendon. I want to say adductor longus. Fibularis longus on the outside. Extensor digitorum, right? Extensor digitorum longus is between the anterior tibialis and the lateral, the fibularis longus. But yeah, that's right. Grouping and mapping the muscles, and it helps to try to learn it by turning on and off, just to see if we could do it. I could do better, but that's that. So let's do the statues next. Thank you, mannequin. Statue. There was one I wanted. Another David. This should be the final David. Another David by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Fantastic artist who does figures more in dynamic poses, not just standing. This guy is in mid. He's got the sling. He's just about to slay Goliath. And so he's loading up the rock in the sling, and he's just about to whip it over his head, and then that guy's a goner. So mid-action. But let's map this. So first, let's take it down. V, 40% opacity, new layer, B for the brush tool, and then simple shapes. Circle for the head, mandible, his neck, the modified circle, egg shape for his rib cage. Now the box is slightly twisty, but the box is something like this, something like that. Circles for the joints, so we got his deltoids, elbows, wrist. Can't quite see his elbow, but his wrist, his kneecap, ankle, and then we connect them with cylinders, of course. Let's add some feet to this guy. His his hands. And that is David by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. All right, now let's do some muscles. Turn that off. Shall we try once again? See if I do any better. Okay. So we have new circle for the head. Mandible comes across. Neck. Got the trapezius. Clavicle. Sternum. The pectoralis major comes across. From clavicle, sternum, across the rib cage, into the arm. Clavicle, sternum, across the rib cage. We got the deltoid we got the bicep on this side. We got the bicep, the brachialis, and the tricep on the back. We have the brachioradialis coming the lower upper arm, coming towards the thumb, latissimus dorsi, the serratus anterior external obliques. We have the rectus abdominis, upper, lower, gracilis. What is it? Adductor longus, I believe, and the sartorius, coming from the outside hip towards the inner knee. Outside hip. Let me check that. Adductor longus, right? Yes. Okay. Making mistakes is okay. It's okay. Sartorius, outside hip, inner knee. Patellar tendon. Gastrocnemius, calf. Tibialis anterior. Yeah, I am second guessing the heck out of myself today. On the outside, we have the fibularis longus, right? Fibularis longus. And between the two is the extensor digitorum longus. Hey. Oh, I forgot the thigh muscles. What am I doing? Rectus femoris and vastus lateralis. Because lateral means on the outside. Medial is on the inside. Right? And that is muscle mapping. For David. It's one of my favorite pieces. Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Okay. So now, let's do some gesture work. We'll talk about gesture. All right, so when we're doing gesture is just a very loose, what I'm thinking about is loose in this sense, a very loose drawing of a figure just to get down what that figure is doing. Now you can render it like this or like this, but usually we're just trying to work out what the form is doing. It's supposed to be a quick sketch, a rough idea of the character or subject. So, did I have an example? I think I do. Okay. So this is what I would call gestures, right? You're just trying to get an idea of something. A gesture is great to work from to get a more finished illustration. So in these examples of Beautiful Beast Kiss, I was just trying to practice with some action poses up here and then some standing poses here. Right, and I worked this one up to a final one last year. Let's look at another. Right, and I can do this a lot. Just look on the internet, try to find, say, different poses like martial arts, jumping, running, or sports. Sports is great because they are people in peak physical form, in high, like they are at the top of their game in an activity. Like say baseball. These are some of the world's best athletes in a particular sport at the top of their game. And they're great to make gestures from. So today let's do a standing pose. All right, so here I just Googled standing pose fashion. Now I usually do fashion poses because they're not the standard. They're slightly more dynamic. They're to, I guess, gain somebody's attention, even if it's just a standing pose, to make it more interesting for the viewer. So standing pose fashion, and we're just going to do some simple. It doesn't need to be any bigger than what it is on screen for myself. But you just want the impression. Like this lady right here is standing in a pretty nice pose, right? There's an S curve, swoosh, swoosh, the leg out, right? So a slight head tilt, and that egg shape for the rib cage, hips. And this is her dominant leg. I'll draw that, and they're not anything spectacular. You just want the idea down. Arm crossed, and then one touching her face. Right? And that's a simple, very simple gesture drawing. Didn't take long to get. Didn't really have to labor over it too far. Now, if you wanted to, take it to the next level, you can do that. But mostly you're just trying to go for what's the basis idea of this. Let's do another one. This one has this lady looking back over her right shoulder. So let's draw that. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out where to put it. So she's looking. Her head is like 3/4. She's adjusting her glasses maybe. But her arm is up. She's got that egg shape. Her hips are turned away from us. But there's a bit of a side plane. And she's standing on this dominant leg, and one leg's out. One leg straight, one leg's out. And this arm is, you can see it kind of from here, right? And that's the gesture. Simple, not labeled over. And you can do as many as you wish. Sometimes it helps do this to get into a flow, get into a rhythm. Let's do this guy. So he has one dominant leg, one leg is up on the stairs. I think one hand is in the pocket, his pocket, and the other arm is bent and touching his chest/thigh. So let's draw that. And a lot of times we do gestures just to try to figure out composition and even like body composition. How do you want this figure to be? Because we can always push it from the original idea. Sometimes our first idea is a good idea, but not the greatest of ideas. So we do these quick gesture sketches or gesture drawings to try out different ways of doing things. And then one arm is across his body, and the other arm, I think, is in his pocket. but it's simple. Simple. Do we have anything else that looks interesting? Oh, I like this one. But yeah, people doing fashion, it's planned for a camera. And since your eyes, your mind is the camera, and you're trying to capture something on a two-dimensional plane, let's do this one and then this one. So this lady, very tiny, is right, dominant leg, one leg out, one hand on hip, other hand on maybe a hat or something. So we're going to do this smaller, and let's do it big. Okay, so she is here. So let's, and again, some S, swoosh, dominant leg, leg out, hand on hip, arm and hand touching a hat, I believe. So circle just to get an idea of where things will be. She's not looking directly at the camera. Look at that. The tilt of her shoulders and the tilt of her hips are in opposite, right? And that makes the image more dynamic. So again, we're thinking about composition and dynamism. Something like that. And then she's got a dominant leg, and she's one leg out, and one arm on hip, and one arm, I think, holding a hat. Right? And that is that gesture. And so now let's take this lady. That's a sassy pose. Ooh, this one's good too. But let's do this one. So she has dominant leg, again, leg out, arms crossed, hips and shoulders. You can see that. That's nice. So, and that's why I take fashion or photography, because they're more composed for a dynamic look at me type energy. A person just standing is, like you wouldn't take well, you could take this pose and say Starbucks line, but it's just a little bit more hips, dominant leg, and leg out, arms crossed. And that's it. This is gestures. Gestures are always fun too. And you can do as many or as little as you want, just to figure out dynamic poses for your characters. Because just standing is, you're like, how can I punch up the drama? How can I make this figure look like they're taking up space, they're commanding attention? Or sometimes even the opposite is true. Like if you want a character to shrink away from the camera, like, you keep your body tight and contained in a space, you can do that too. And the opposite of that would be just, limbs, but it's all thought. You're thinking about what can you do with your character within your mind. You're turning your character, you're posing your characters, you're thinking about what they can do according to their personality type. If they have, are they exuberant? Are they shy? Are they commanding? Are they stoic? Are they reserved? All these things you have to think about. And the first steps are usually through gesture. So I think that's it. Did we do it all? I think so. Take a look at the schedule. All right, so today was Monday, the 27th, where we did shapes, heads and hands, mannequin, anatomy, sculpture, and gesture. And we'll do this the whole week, mixing up a little bit, doing different anatomy bits every day, doing basic heads without, my reference, and trying to move shapes in space. And that will be the boot camp for this week. All right. So thank you for joining me. I have been Trey Hodges. You can find my work at treyhodges.com. Take care. Keep shining. Power to the creators. And bye.